His testimony isn't until tomorrow, but we already know how fired FBI Director James Comey will start things out. The Senate Intelligence Committee released Comey's opening statement this afternoon. Among the highlights, a dinner on January 27th, in which Comey recalls Trump telling him, quote, "I need loyalty, I expect loyalty." Comey also confirmed that he did, in fact, talk to the FBI and then assured Trump that he was not under investigation personally during their first meeting. He goes on to say that Trump had told Comey he hoped he could, quote, "see his way clear to letting this go, to letting Flynn go," meaning former National Security Director Michael Flynn, who was fired after Trump said he misled the vice president about a meeting with Russia, and that Flynn was a, quote, "good guy." After a February 14th meeting with Trump, Comey said he asked the Attorney General Sessions to prevent any future direct communication between the president and Comey. Of course, we'll hear much more from Comey tomorrow when he goes before the Senate Intelligence Committee. And rumor has it that Trump will be live tweeting the whole thing. But earlier today, that same committee heard from other top intelligence officials about their interactions with the president, among them Director of National Intelligence, that's Dan Coates.
I have never felt pressure to intervene or interfere in any way and shaping intelligence in a political way or in relationship to an ongoing investigation.
Pretty straightforward answer there, but when it came to questions about whether Trump asked him to intervene in the Comey investigation, it was a different situation.
I don't believe it's appropriate for me to address that in a public session. I'm not prepared to answer your question today.
I am not asking for classified information. I am asking whether or not you have ever been asked by anyone to influence an ongoing investigation.
I understand, but I'm just not going to go down that road.
But maybe we will. Joining me for all this are Kirsten Hughes. She's chair of the Massachusetts Republican Party. Kirsten, it's good to see you. Jesse Mermel, who served as governor of Valpatrick's communications director. It's good to see you, too.
Hi,
Jeffrey Toobin, big-time legal analyst on CNN, tweeted out about a minute and a half after this statement came out. Comey's statement establishes obstruction of justice by Trump, period. And by the way, that's not even mentioning whether the firing itself was obstruction of justice. Do you disagree with Toobin's interpretation?
Well, I think Jeffrey Toobin has many agendas, mostly of which is propping himself up as his CNN analyst position leads it to be. But, so I don't know about that legal conclusion.
How about you? What's your interpretation of what you've read so far?
I think what the most important thing out of this is that 3 times he told the president he was not personally under investigation, and Trump has been saying that all along, despite the hue and cry of Democrats and the media.
Which,
that
by the way,
can't possibly be the truth.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because when Republicans try to destroy Comey's credibility tomorrow, Comey admits, as you just said, that Donald Trump was telling the truth when he said that I assured him 3 times he was personally not under investigation. Doesn't that buttress his credibility tomorrow morning before the committee?
I don't know. We'll have to see what plays out tomorrow.
What's your initial take? And admittedly, it's just been out a few hours. What's your initial take on this, Jesse?
So one of my better qualities is that I'm not an attorney. So I'm not here to give any legal analysis. But
so what's your take on
From a comms perspective, I think this is a really tough day for Donald Trump. And we know it's going to be a tough 2 days, because what Comey has done by releasing his testimony on paper is guarantee that his words create a 2-day story. We've got the words today. We've got the visual tomorrow. The important thing about what you said about Comey confirming what Trump has said, that he was not under investigation.
Which, by the way, as Kirsten said, most Democrats were saying he would never have said that to the president. There's no reason for him to have said that to the president.
Well, here's the additional thing that he said. He refused to comply with Trump's wish that he make that information public.
Correct.
Because he felt that he couldn't guarantee it wouldn't change. And so,
but you're reading into
parties
that
have reason
There's
to
a lot of
complain
things,
about
yes,
Comey,
correct.
right? If there's anything that unites us, it's a reason to complain about Comey, though the reasons may be different. But, if Comey is anything, he is someone who's committed to public service and I think is trying to do things by the letter of the law, though we may disagree about whether or not he's complying with that. And for him to say that he is not comfortable making public, at the time in his conversation with Donald Trump, that Trump was not under investigation for fear that it may change, I think speaks volumes about where his mindset was and where he thought this investigation might go.
Or doesn't speak volumes at all. Isn't any good investigator say this is where things now until the investigation is complete? I don't want to have to say something that I may, in the course of any investigation, have to do a 180 on. Isn't that standard operating procedure?
But that's not what the president thought. The president was asking him to change standard operating procedure.
You know, this loyalty pledge thing, too. I mean, maybe an average person in the country may say, well, what's the big deal? You work for him.
Right.
The FBI is supposed to be independent. I think most of us value that in the American justice system. You don't think that's a problem for Donald Trump, even if it's not a legal problem?
Yeah, I don't think that's the way he meant it, and I certainly agree
What do you think he meant?
I don't know. I'm not inside his head or inside his tweets, but what I do think is that most Americans would see this as, again, of course, everyone expects loyalty of the people they work with and work for, and loyalty to the United States. I don't know what he meant by that, and I don't, we'll have to see what comes of that.
He's not just asking for loyalty. If you read Comey's testimony that he'll give tomorrow, he's being asked for loyalty, and he's being reminded that, there are a lot of other people who'd love your job, not so subtle, wink, wink, nod, nod. You could be easily replaced. I mean, I think it makes me very, very uncomfortable that the president would put an independent FBI director in that sort of position in a private lunch when, Comey's testimony also lays out how infrequently he was in private conversation or one-on-one space with President Obama and how frequently Donald Trump has put him in that position.
Can we step back from this for a second, Kirsten? There's going to be on Fox News and CNN tomorrow morning before the testimony. It's going to be on every station.
Oh, the countdown clock.
But on Fox News
running.
and CNN, there's going to be a commercial funded by an organization run by Rudy Giuliani and Newt Gingrich called the Great America Alliance. It's going to be an ad basically saying, in the harshest of terms, Comey has no credibility. The guy you're about to hear, I'm paraphrasing, has absolutely no credibility. Would you not agree, after what you said at the top, about his acknowledgement that, yes, Donald Trump was telling the truth about our conversations, about his personal, any personal investigation, which does not exist? Regardless of whether you like the testimony or not, a Republican or a Democrat tomorrow, is anybody going to question his credibility when most of these are contemporaneously made notes? Are people going to say he's lying, James Comey?
No, I don't think so. I think one of the most interesting parts about this, and one of the most troubling really, is the hysteria and the hype and the jumping to conclusions that has come about before he's even testified or before we've actually had any of the facts vetted out. Again, you go back to things that have been said, and every time the truth actually comes to bear, it's very different from what the media circus and the hype that Democrats have been,
well, not on him
trying
to have the Flynn investigation deep six. This is exactly what media reports said, exactly what pundits, I hate that word, have said, and exactly what Comey is going to say tomorrow. Speaking of credibility, how does a Democrat tomorrow stand up and say, FBI Director Comey, thank you for your service to the American people. And by the way, you're the same guy who screwed Hillary Clinton last year. And remember when I said you did? How do they do a 180 on that?
I think this is where Comey benefits from being an equal opportunity upsetter. We all, like I said earlier, we all have reason to be annoyed with this guy. And I think that actually puts him in a pretty credible place. If he's ticking everybody off, he's
Can we go to an incredible place for a second? I mentioned at the top that Dan Coates and Rogers, other intelligence people today, refused to answer a question about what Donald Trump had said in the Oval Office. And a Republican, not a Democrat,
right,
John McCain had this to say, which rang pretty true with me. Here's Senator McCain.
It just shows what kind of an Orwellian existence that we live in. I mean, it's detailed, as you know from reading the story, as to when you met, what you discussed, et cetera, and yet here in a public hearing before the American people, we can't talk about what was described in detail in this morning's Washington Post.
That's pretty common language. They would not answer the question about whether the President of the United States asked them to intervene in the Comey investigation. Is that not troubling to you, Kirsten?
I think it's troubling in a way, but I think you see Senate Republicans being very responsible here and really trying to get the most information from these folks as they can. If Dan Coates doesn't feel as though that's appropriate to answer, I guess that's the way he feels. It is a little...
But is he the one who gets to make that determination?
Well, he does when he's the one testifying, so I mean...
But, I'm not a lawyer, but I'm uncomfortable with that, a legitimate reason to not testify before the United States
You're
Senate.
not a lawyer?
I'm not.
Oh, I
didn't
am,
know that. Okay.
unfortunately.
So, can we end on this here?
Yes.
It seems to me, bring this back locally for a minute. There's a governor of the Republican variety who is probably going to be asked about 6 minutes after the testimony tomorrow, who do you believe? This is a he said, she said on this Flynn thing, not on the whether there was a personal investigation of Trump as such. Charlie Baker, I think very skillfully, you may disagree, very skillfully has dealt with like the climate change thing. He joins the multi-state coalition. What does Charlie Baker say at, let's say, 2 o'clock tomorrow when the first reporter sticks a mic in his face? Who do you believe, Governor? Do you believe James Comey or do you believe the President of the United States? What does he do?
It's a good question. I think he's going to probably be very busy tomorrow doing some state business. So I don't know if he'll have a chance to comment on it because maybe he won't have seen it.
Give him some bipartisan advice. What does he say?
Start working on a statement tonight. Don't wing it tomorrow. And you know what? He may be busy tomorrow. He may not, get trapped out in front of 360, the governor's office in the State House. But this is not going away. Charlie Baker is going to have to answer for Donald Trump over the next however many years this man is in office, and certainly through Election Day in 2018 when Charlie Baker is going to be on the ballot for re-election.
Look, I think Democrats are going to try to do everything they can to discredit Governor Baker. I think everyone knows that his record here in Massachusetts has been stellar, and they're not going to have an easy time of pinning anything
we'll
negative
see if
to the
tomorrow
governor.
Is another day. Who knows?
Okay.
Kirsten, it's great to see you.
Good to see you, Jim.
Jesse, you as well.
Thanks, Jim.
See you soon. And you can hear James Comey's Senate testimony live tomorrow on Boston Public Radio. We'll be starting an hour early tomorrow at 10. That's on 89.7 or online at WGBHnews.org.